Hello, everybody, and happy Sunday. It is the first Wise Guys episode of December. I am one of your hosts. I am the Big Rican on Sports, Mike Martinez. Let me bring in my co-host now, JC Blue Note James, and I see here we go. We're masking up with the Optimus Prime. What the hell?
It's that I lost a fight with my razor about 25 minutes before we went live. I am bleeding all over the place. So to avoid, any potential flag for, graphic nature or anything, I'm just gonna chin up until I can finally get it to stop.
Well, it's good to see you're still in one piece, though, sir. I do appreciate that for this evening.
For now.
We've got a lot to get to tonight, everybody. I hope everyone had a very nice weekend. I know mine got better about noontime today, which is where we're going to start the episode today. We're going to start with the college football playoff. But, James, I need to do something first, so give me one hot second. I'm going to change the old lid here. And notice the side of it. I got this when they went in the last time as a non-conference champion. And by the way, I think I'm going to leave this on. It's very, very comfy. It's like all foam in here. So the top four was released about 12:30 this afternoon. I know it was about 12:30 because I had to get the laundry out of the thing and bring it back, and we were feeding Bobby lunch at the same time. And your top four, we thought we were getting the rematch right away of... You know what? Before I get into the CFP, hit me with it. I deserve it.
Mike, whatever do you mean? I mean, it's just.
The dead silence you hear is him thinking about a way to just slap me down for picking Ohio State to beat that team up north and getting, well, it was a one-score game in the fourth quarter, and then they got their ass handed to them. Let's just go out and say it. They got their ass handed to them.
Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you over the sound of winning for the second year in a row.
You're a dick. You want me to wear my shirt that says, once again, Michigan is our bitch again on the back, and he's got like 10 in a row?
That actually coming from a guy who, for the second time in as many years and as many shows, had their quarterback. When the going got tough, he quit.
You know what?
He folded faster than a house of cards in a tornado.
He folded like a tent. Not that he had much help. Let's just start there. But look, hats off to Jim Harbaugh for turning around this once proud program back into something to be proud of. Because for a long time, between the end of Lloyd Carr stint and Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, this was not a good program, and Jim Harbaugh has done it. It took him a lot longer than people wanted him to. Let's be honest. Harbaugh lost his first five. And then, in my opinion, punked out in 2020. Because you did not see any other school during the COVID year. It was a COVID year. I get it. You did not see any other school in the COVID year put out, we had our best week of practice in a week you canceled a game. So I understand it was a COVID year. I understand precaution was the word of the day, but that has always sat not very well with me.
Yeah, but let's also keep in mind that one of the teams that you're going to mention had back-to-back bowl games canceled because of concerns over COVID.
No, and I agree. I understand. I understand 100%. But let's talk about the CFP. Let's talk about 1 through 4. And when they released it today, it was no surprise at the top, with the defending champion, undefeated Georgia, who absolutely annihilated LSU in the SEC championship game, was number 1. Michigan was number 2 after. Did anyone see Purdue keeping that close the way they did the first half?
No, it's but then again, it's always a telltale sign of the Big Ten championship game. Is either you're going to get somebody running up the score, or you're going to have a game that's a lot closer than anybody gives it credit for.
Or honestly should be.
Right.
And then at number 3, which is the one, I think the playoff finally got something right, Jim. Outside of my own personal bias, TCU being number 3 and going to the desert to play against Michigan, I think was the right call. I know you and I were talking about it, how you thought this was the right call. Our buddy John, who has done a mock 12-team playoff several times, and him and I have spoken about it, even he said this was the right call. And of course, at number 4, they gave it to the best one-loss team in Ohio State. They will go to Georgia to play in the Peach Bowl against Georgia. It's basically a home game for the Bulldogs in Atlanta. Now, just to refresh some memories before we get into the 2-3 game a little bit. Last time Ohio State was the 4 seed, they won. And that was, of course, the first year of the Sugar Bowl, beating what people called an unbeatable Alabama team. Let's see how JSN is in the next few days, because Ryan Day feels he will have an update in the next few days about his availability, but everybody else should be available and healthy and ready to go. So let's go to the 2-3 matchup first, Jim, because we both have skin in the game in these two, you following Harbaugh and me following the Bucks. What does TCU have to do to win this game? And do you think they can afford to fall behind?
To answer the second question first, no. It's if they fall behind, it's basically it's done. Let's be honest. Michigan with that defense is nowhere near as kind of playing down to your strengths as K-State was last night. For those of you who didn't actually see, and I wrote about this on the Sports Note about 2 hours ago, that K-State was actually up in that game 28-17 with just under 12 minutes to go in the game, and then TCU came all the way back, led by capped off by a Max Duggan touchdown run with about 1:15 to go, and then converted on the fourth down. Converted on the 2-point try to tie the game and send it to overtime. You're right. This was absolutely the right call. If you guys actually want to hear my full thoughts about this, head on over to the Sports Note after we're done here. But this was actually something that a couple of things became very evident. The committee doesn't have their head as far up their ass as we thought.
Amen.
And then secondly, I honestly think after that performance, I think Max Duggan may have ripped the Heisman Trophy away from anybody in contention. And here's why. Blake Corum did not play the Ohio State game. Is going to miss did not play the conference championship game and will not actually play in the playoff. He's done. CJ Stroud, as we've discussed, does not perform well in big games. That performance against Michigan, especially in the second half, was a telltale sign. As the season got longer and the games got more meaningful, Stroud became, I don't want to say non-existent, but Stroud did not play up to his potential. Hendon Hooker did not honestly play the rest of the season. Bryce Young, when you got 2 losses on your resume and Alabama's quality of wins down the stretch was not up to snuff. As the season got longer, Max Duggan got better. And I think Max Duggan played himself into the first round of the NFL draft next year. TCU can run the football very effectively, but if they're actually going to try and maybe get into an air it out type of contest, and we've seen that Michigan loves to be able to pound the football, and they've got reserves for days. But we've also seen now that that JJ can air the ball out. It's not the prettiest deep ball, but with the way that his receivers can get separation, it's going to make things very, very difficult for the Horned Frogs to cover. That's going to be I think that's honestly going to be the more entertaining of the 2 games, but I would like to see a close game. I'm not sure if it's in the cards, but I don't see a scenario, honestly, where TCU comes out on top on this.
Here's where I see the scenario where they can do it, and I'm going to go back to the CJ Stroud thing. Did he play well down the stretch? No, he didn't. He had the subpar game. Well, Northwestern, you can't really. He did play well against Penn State, which was, I think, the win that got them in the playoff, as Penn State will take the berth to the Rose Bowl and be the Big Ten representative there. He did play well the week before at Maryland. He has not played well in his 2 games against Michigan, but he did play outstanding record-setting against Utah last year in the Rose Bowl. Big game thing, maybe not. I think the defense at Michigan has him a little befuddled. He's not coming back. And if they would have gone to a regular bowl game, he wouldn't have played. We know that. We were all getting excited for Kyle McCord to play in the Rose Bowl. Now that's not happening as they're going to go down to Georgia. Here's how TCU can win this game. don't run cover zero.
Right.
For Christ's sake. They ran cover zero too much in that game. I said it to you in text message that day. I said it to another friend of mine. If they keep running cover zero, this kid will pick them apart because the secondary has no dogs in it. Oh, look, they ran cover zero in the second half and got picked apart, and then the Michigan offensive line just took over. So Dugan will be the kind of quarterback that has always given Harbaugh fits. The mobile, I'm going to take it with my legs. I'm going to take off where I need to. That's why he couldn't beat JT Barrett. That's why he couldn't beat Justin Fields. That's why he didn't win bowl games.
Let's keep in mind that Dugan threw for 251 yards and ran for 110 in that game.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Harbaugh, because of his time in the NFL, I think is more set to stop a pocket passer, which C.J. Stroud is, than he is the mobile quarterback. Why? Because he's used to designing an offense for a mobile quarterback, Cap, but he's not used to designing a defense for one. That was increasingly evident. And the only drop-back passer I think that's beaten Harbaugh since he's been at Michigan was Dwayne Haskins. The rest of them were moving.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look that over, but you might be right on that.
Ian Book, when he was at Notre Dame, beat him. Stetson Bennett will run when he needs to. Smoked him last year in the playoff. Stroud didn't want to run the ball. There were plenty of times C.J. Stroud should have pulled the ball down and taken off. And they took Bobby to a Santa Claus thing, and I sat here and screamed that with profanity-laced tirade at my television. I think run the fucking ball came out of my mouth at least 12 times.
God,
I don't think this will be the more entertaining game in here. And obviously there's a little bit of bias to that. But the reason I don't think this will be the more entertaining game is I think that Michigan's going to boa constrict this team in submission. I think they're just going to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and just pound them into submission. Big 12 don't play that way.
Right. Big 12 likes to air it out for Dugan to throw for 3,321 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions all year. You think he's not my favorite for the Heisman where I've got his stats memorized?
And by the way, he wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season.
Right. And that's the more important thing. That you notice how I'm not even paying attention to that.
I know.
But that's actually where I think that you're right. Michigan is going to run the ball. They are going to try and wear TCU down. That TCU has given up points this year, but TCU also has a very, very explosive offense. They move the ball extremely well, whether running or throwing. I think they've got like the 6th best passing game in all of college football.
Mm-hmm.
Even after last night's defeat, and let's be honest, it's that as much as TCU trailed in that game, I actually was kind of expecting them to end up coming up short at several points when I kept checking in on it. I didn't watch a single minute of college football yesterday. It's way too much to do, but I kept checking in on that one periodically throughout the night. When you've actually got the best running back in all of college football, like Kansas State does, in Deuce Vaughn, who's going to be a first-round pick, if not a top 15 pick, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, no, their offensive line is very good. Deuce Vaughn is a dynamic back. And listen, their quarterback played out of his mind this year. That's recipe for winning a lot of college football games and getting into the playoff. Listen, TCU was one of the teams that got screwed the first year by the Big 12 not having a championship game. And it's not easy to beat a team twice in the same season. It's not. But going over to the other game, which is the primetime game. So I was joking with Steph earlier. I said, you know how you like me to stay up till midnight on New Year's Eve? And she goes, yeah. I said, I bet you there's a really good shot of me doing that this year. And she said, why is that? I said, Ohio State kicks off at 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve. Here's the one that got me in trouble. You ready for this? 2015, it literally got to midnight, and at 5 after, I'm like this. Right?
I'm Steph. If you're in the other room and watching, don't worry. Mike's going to be able to go to bed early that night because he's going to be drowning his sorrows.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think it is. I don't know if they're going to win. I just don't think it's going to be bad.
I think Georgia's got the potential to hang more points in that game than the other game combined with the way that those teams will grind out.
That's true. The question is, and here is the question that Georgia's going to have to answer. If JSN is healthy, who do you double? Because if you spread, because the teams that have had some kind of success against Georgia have spread them out and run the ball up the middle. Kent State did that. Tennessee, when they were in the game for the first 5 minutes, did that. That's how Bama beat them last year in the championship game. And I'm sorry for the glare, everybody, but it's got too freaking hot with the hat on. You would think with no hair it wouldn't be that bad, but no, it's
right. Yeah.
Shut up. My matchup of the day is going to be.
You're sweating like a pig, and I'm bleeding like a fool.
I'm just really. It's very glary up here. Like I'm afraid to take pictures in front of the Christmas trees. It's bad.
You know what? Actually, I got to figure out lighting. I'm thinking of flipping the camera around and putting the Christmas tree in the back of the shot for our year-end show, which we'll talk about at the end.
Absolutely. So the matchup is going to be, can Jim Knowles fix the problems that they had against Michigan? Because Michigan and
I'm still here.
You're such a jackass.
No, seriously. It's I'm actually just making sure that I stop bleeding.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing this. We were talking about your game. Jerk. So can Jim Knowles fix the problems they have? Because Michigan and Georgia are very much alike when it comes to their offense. They love to run the football. They have a quarterback that plays with a chip on their shoulder who can make a throw when he needs to. Can you tighten up the secondary to make this a game? I hope he can. I don't want them to go in there and get blown out again. This will be the Ryan Day's third appearance and Ohio State's fifth overall. They've got a national championship, but the second time they went in, they got blown out by Clemson. You had the game against Clemson that they got screwed out of, and then you've got when they just smoked Clemson. This will be the first SEC opponent since Bama in that championship game and in a semifinal since Bama in that Sugar Bowl, which that video is right over there. This will be the most talented offense that Georgia sees. Are you still bleeding, dude?
Yeah, it's the problem with this is that this is on turf. It's indoors. This is going to be a track meet, and Ohio State cannot win a track meet against Georgia. I'm sorry, Georgia is just too damn good.
I disagree.
JSN is a better is a better option, but let's be honest. JSN is not a 23-point option to be able to get them over the hump against Michigan. JSN is not going to be a 2-score betterance, if not 3-score on New Year's Eve. I think Georgia wins this game, and I think Georgia wins this game going away.
I hope you're wrong, obviously, for my own fandom. But I will say this. Georgia hasn't fared well when a guy can make a throw. CJ can put the ball on a dime. Has he had his issues in big games? Really just against Michigan. It's the only issues he's had, which is big issues when it comes to being the Ohio State quarterback. I think it'll be closer than what you think and probably some of the experts think. You see the line opened at 7.
That's low.
That tells me people understand this could be an absolute epic. And if it is, great. We'll watch a great college football game. And if it's not, you know what? I will go to bed early. I did when they got blown out by Clemson.
This is actually where the underlying problem is with college football and why 2024 can't get here fast enough. And this is actually where, Mike, do you actually want to now have the argument that we had on Facebook earlier?
Which one? You and I argue about a lot of shit.
It's one of us was actually going to call the other one something else, and then you actually came up with a better suggestion.
Oh, you mean the Statler and Waldorf for sports talk?
Yeah, it's Mike and I before we came on tonight. Actually, right as I was getting ready to tape my my TCU piece, we're trying to dispute who was going to be get the hell off my lawn guy. And then I actually made the comment that of Statler and Waldorf, at least I still have my hair.
Dick.
Thank you. But this is actually where the committee, for getting the TCU pick right, I'm going to come out and flat out say it. If Ohio State would have come into this game at 3 and they would have put Ohio State, Michigan in the semifinal, you would have seen me boycotting all of the bowl games, and I would have not previewed this game. Mike would have been probably doing the January show primarily on his own.
Now January we'll do Cavs.
Yeah, but the idea that Ohio State, and Mike is going to hate me for this because I did not bring this up. Ohio State right now better get down on their hands and knees and kiss the feet and the ass of the Alabama fan base, because they are in the position now that Alabama was in last year. So Alabama set the precedent for
2017. I know what you're talking about.
Last year too, because Alabama won their conference title, and then Georgia was the one-loss team on their way out. So if it wasn't for Alabama and Georgia basically resting everyone, essentially, or kind of taking it easy and almost throwing that game, we can conspiracy theory as much as we want, to ensure that it kept Ohio State out, regardless of what you think, even after the Buckeyes got housed last year. But then you look at the comparison for this year. Last year you had 3 conference champions, 1 a Cinderella, and then your at-large team. This year you've got 2 that ran the table, and then 1 that lost in overtime. So you essentially have you got the 2 best conference champions in the country, and then 2 essentially at-large teams getting into this. Honestly, if you're thinking about a true college football playoff, you would probably think the best thing you would do is you would take your 5 power conferences and your group of 5 teams, and you take all of your champions, and then you pick the best 4 out of that, and then everyone else is relegated to group of 6. But that's never going to happen.
I have said that since the beginning. Where the committee set the precedent was 2016. And that is the first non-conference champion again, and that was Ohio State. By the way, 2 things people forget about that year. Ohio State was a 3 seed in that tournament. That's how good their resume was. Because that's the year they went on the road, beat a top 5 Oklahoma in Norman by 22 points. They beat number 10 Wisconsin at Camp Randall when they were undefeated in conference play. And then, of course, we have the 5-hour game day. The last time it was 2 versus 3, and they beat Michigan. The only loss that year came on a blocked field goal at Penn State. So basically, that's what TCU was. You had a late overtime loss in the conference championship game. Ohio State's loss came earlier in the season. The next year, do you know the highest? It was the second time they had a non-conference champion get in. You know the highest ranked team Alabama played and beat that year was?
Had to have been in the 15 or
preseason number 3 Florida State, who lost DeAndre Francois on the first drive. The only other game they played inside the top 10, they lost. But they were unequivocally the number 4 team in the country.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
this is again why 2024 cannot get here fast enough.
Exactly. So, and then here's the other argument. And I'm going back to Ohio State. I know it's my team, and I know I'm a homer, and you have said that, and I've admitted it. But that year, Ohio State beat the number 2 team in the country in Penn State in that epic comeback at the Horseshoe. And then in the Big Ten championship game, beat the remaining undefeated team in the country in Wisconsin, who was ranked number 4. They had 2 better wins than Alabama did all year, but Bama got in because it's an SEC team. You want to talk conspiracy theory, Jim? How crazy is it that ESPN loses the Big Ten in 2 years, and it's 2 Big Ten teams in this tournament?
because let's call it what it is, because the only reason that we're in this scenario is because USC can't do their goddamn job for the second year. You know, I don't want to even say that for the second year in a row. Utah plays spoiler for the second year in a row.
Yeah, did you hear what Whittingham said to Urban? Urban says, "Listen, man, this falls away. It's gonna. You're not gonna have to ever buy a meal again in the state of Ohio." And he goes, "Coach Day, you're welcome." I loved every second of that. And I think we all knew once that happened, and then it came out that the Rose Bowl was not going to invite Ohio State if they didn't get in the playoff. I think we knew at that moment Ohio State was going to go to a big game, and they were going to play in the playoff.
Yeah, that was kind of the telltale right there. Although I have a huge problem, and always have, of you want everything to play out on Saturday, but yet why in the holy living hell do you put the Pac-12 title game on a Friday night?
I don't know.
It's ridiculous.
I think it's because Fox didn't have enough spots.
It's the only major conference championship game that did not occur on Saturday.
I don't think Fox had enough spots, because didn't they do Big 12 too?
They did.
So you're going to play the Pac-12 game at 10:30 on the East Coast?
I mean, maybe they move it to Saturday once actually everything starts shifting with the TV deals.
It's possible, because then you can throw them on CBS or NBC.
Because you've got playoff implications, and now you're actually having these kids play on 6 days rest instead of actually giving them a full day.
Jim, I agree with you 100%. My only thought was Fox did Pac-12, Fox did Big 12, Fox did Big 10. And, of course, the Big 10 is the marquee. It's always been the 7 o'clock game, or on whatever it is, the primetime game on Saturday during championship weekend. I don't know why they don't made USC and Utah play on Friday. I would have, if we're talking about that, the Big 12 should have played on Friday.
You had to think that there would have been some way, somehow, that they could have scheduled this better.
Well, let's think about it. The first game was at noon, and that was Big 12, right?
Right.
CBS had SEC at what?
No, Big 12 was a late game. Big 12 was an 8 o'clock game last night.
No, Big 12 was done before Michigan started.
Okay, so they were like, I don't think they were the lead off.
You know who was last night? Clemson, North Carolina was last night.
Right. Yeah, you should have put that one earlier because neither one had CFP aspirations.
Yeah, you could have done, and that was on ESPN anyway. I'm thinking of the Fox games because Fox had the two. Fox had Big 12, Big 10. Yeah, I think they could have done it. I think you could have done Big 12 at noon because you're in the Central Time Zone. They start all those games at 11 anyway. You can still do Big 10. I would have moved Big 10 to like 6. And then the other one at 9. And you could have got all three in as far as broadcasting goes.
Yeah, because that's the drawback right now is that you've got, Fox has got exclusivity, whereas with ABC, ESPN, you can get some crossovers. Here's the other thing you could have potentially done is that could you have possibly with their history maybe even have moved the Big 12 to TNT TBS, and that would have freed up.
Possibly. Yeah, because Gus and Joel did last night, right? Yeah. You could have moved it. And, you and I are going to have a field day once these media deals go in. Because I got a feeling we're going to dissect this whole thing over again in 2 years. But the 12-team playoff, you know what the fun part about the first round of that's going to be, Jim? It's going to be because it's on campus. You're going to have a southern team have to come north. And the funny thing is, the way it shook out, because the conference champions get the bye, Bama would have played Ohio State. And damn well Ryan Day would have had the horseshoe.
Yeah, let's also, we talk about all kinds of great coaches out there. The fact that the greatest coach in the history of college football is considered to have a subpar year because he lost 2 games in the regular season. I mean, what a charmed life, what an absolute train wreck of a year this was for Alabama, and yet they get to match up with Kansas State in the Sugar Bowl. It's so they're still in a group of 6, and deservedly so. They should
Mhm.
be.
No, I agree with you, but here's the thing. Nick Saban's argument falls on deaf ears. He said last night, "Oh, well, we finished 3-0 down the stretch." You
Right.
played the College of Charleston one week, dude. Shut up.
Right.
I think that the cure for all this is the SEC needs to go to a 9-game schedule, like every other conference plays. Get rid of the cupcake game, and no one can say anything to you. If you would have gone down the stretch and beaten, who they beat down the stretch? They beat Auburn, who was crap. They beat the College of Charleston, who was garbage, or Chaminade, whoever the hell they played. It's some goddamn cupcake game. And I think it was what?
I'm looking it up. Go Phil for 15 seconds.
Okay. If you're gonna you're gonna be the big boy conference, then quite honestly, play a big boy schedule.
Their last 3 games after the LSU loss, which was at the Horn, win at Ole Miss, win over Austin Peay, win over Auburn.
Okay, let's play a little Sesame Street game since we were talking about Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets. One of these things doesn't belong here.
Yeah. That's a hallmark of some of those premier teams in the SEC is
Austin Peay in November.
Putting those 1AA or low end 1A schools at the end of your schedule.
I understand Georgia. Their rival is Georgia Tech. They're in different conferences. I get that.
Right.
But Georgia Tech is still an FBS team who some years has an outside shot of playing for the ACC championship, and they play them the final week of the season in a rivalry game. So they're going to play that 8th conference game there. You don't have to schedule a garbage team. I'm sorry, you don't.
Yeah, and considering again a 10-win team going to a group of 6 bowl and lost to 2 top 10 teams by a combined 4 points on the final play of both games.
Jim, we had a Cotton Bowl in 2017 that had 2 conference champions in it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. This is an invitational, and until it gets to 12 in 2 years, it's not a playoff. Big shout out to our buddy John Rice, who had the best model so far that I've seen.
And this is why I'm sorry is, until they expand, you can't really take college football all that serious because it's all about the money. They're the ones controlling all the shifting of all these teams jumping conferences and screwing up all the other sports out there. Screwing up college basketball, screwing up college baseball, and I understand that football does control the money, but this is actually where until you get to 12, the system is still broken because you've got 4 teams out of however many conferences that play at the 1A level. Sorry, I will not call it whatever they do.
I know what you mean.
It's 1A. It's always going to be 1A. That you've got 4 teams out of 123, 124, whatever it might be. Whereas in college basketball, you've got 68 out of over 400, but you've got 25, 30 conferences that everyone is representative in, with the exception of those garbage goddamn play-in games that you take 2 teams that work their asses off for one of them to get in from one of those small conferences, and you shove them on a Tuesday night that isn't even part of March Madness. Sorry, you're going to hear me going off about that as we get closer to March, but but you've got everyone represented, and then that's the thing is that the NIT and this and the I can't even remember what they call the other tournament, the CIT or something, or the CBA or whatever it's called. That those are for those teams that deserve postseason but can't get in, and that's what these bowl games are. For all of these other squads, essentially. But it's still the fact that you've got a much larger sample size to be able to decide things. Whereas if you've got, let's say, a Kansas State who lost 3 games on their schedule, won a Power 5 conference, and then actually has to play and doesn't even get a chance to play for the national championship.
See, and that's my thing too.
Whereas you can have a team like, for sake of argument, you can have a Villanova out there, have 5 or 6 losses on their schedule, and then still get put on a 3 line. And we can actually talk all we want about favorable draws in the NCAA tournament, but still, the fact is, you actually, ideally, when the committee sets out to pick the field of 68, their ideal position is to get one of those top 4 teams in each region into the Final Four, unless you get an outlier, like in North Carolina as an 8 last year, getting to the national championship game. The fact that you've got only 2 conference champions in this playoff.
Exactly
What exactly how broken this thing is, and how the committee really, if they're not going to change the format for the next 2 years until they expand the playoff, they're screwed.
Well, remember, it's only next year. Next year's the last one. Here, I got to fix the cushion on the chair. Next year's the last one like this, which is nice. And then we'll get an actual playoff. This is an invitational. This is an invitational by 13 people who think they know everything about football. And, my team has been in there a bunch. My team won the first one. And I think we can both agree that team earned it to get there.
As much as it pains me to say it, yes, they did.
By putting up 60 against Wisconsin, by beating Alabama in a Sugar Bowl, and then just absolutely blasting the Marcus Mariota-led Oregon Ducks. But yeah, and the thing is, the conference champions the non-conference champions who have gotten in, with the exception of 2017 Alabama, had a resume that matched up, that they could say, okay, this is one of the best 4 teams. Well, why didn't they win their conference? Well, what happened? Bama, was that the Kick 6 year? 2017?
Chris Johnson?
Yeah, or was that earlier?
Oh.
No, it wasn't. Bama lost that by multiple scores. You put that up. Bama lost.
The Kick 6 was 2013.
That's the year they played Jameis and Florida State in the final BCS championship game.
Yeah, that was the last year before the playoff. Yep.
Okay, so that means Bama lost that game by multiple scores. That was the year Auburn beat Georgia and Bama in successive weeks. But again, they played one top 10 team outside of that, and that was a preseason top 10. Georgia last year, same thing. We've had 4 national championships come out of non-conference champions since the – oh, very nice. You look good down there, by the way. It's not springing out.
At least it stopped. I can't say the same for my mask. But it's laundry. It's laundry week. Yep.
Exactly. If that landed on a tree, that'd have been funny.
No, that actually went in the bedroom.
Nice.
The tree's like 10 feet in the opposite direction of his camera.
Gotcha. But yeah, you've had 4 champions, national champions, who have not won their conference in the 70-some years of the AP poll. The first one, 2010, 2017, and last year. The last 3 are bias wins. We've just done 40 minutes on the CFP.
Yeah, it's
we need to move on.
We do. It's and trust me, we got a lot we can move on to. Let's actually get the quick one out of the way here before we actually get to our primary topic, which I also discussed on my reaction video, on my instant react video that Mike has been dreading talking about all year.
I hate this son of a bitch.
Let's shift gears and let's actually talk about your third place in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland Cavaliers.
Look, tonight pissed me off, but they have been playing great. And I actually recorded the game because they were playing against the frickin' Knicks. And I can fast forward through the garbage and just watch the game. I want to see what happened. Jim, I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to get me a lot of funny looks. And we said this with Willie when the deal came down. Is Donovan Mitchell an early favorite for the MVP?
You'd be hard pressed to disagree at this point right now.
I mean, who's playing better than him?
They shut Embiid down the other night. Giannis, let's keep this in mind right now. The two teams that the Cavs are trailing in the Eastern Conference right now, they are after tonight's loss, they are 2 games back in Milwaukee. They're 0-2 against the Bucks this year. But Giannis didn't play particularly well in one of those. And then they are now 3.5 back of Boston, who's atop the Eastern Conference, but they are 2-0 against Boston this year and held Jason Tatum primarily in check for both of those. He still got his, but he was not the factor that they expected him to be.
Yeah, they're 2-0 against the Celtics. They're 0-2 against the Bucks. Are they 2-0? They've beaten Atlanta too, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're talking about having 3 or 4 wins against the top teams in the conference. They're 15-9. The Celtics are going to run away with the Atlantic and hide. I'm looking on the Cavs app right now at the standings. The Celtics are going to run away and hide from Philly. I don't think Brooklyn is going to give anybody a problem. I think the Southeast is going to be interesting. The Heat should start to play better.
We're starting to figure out that Miami, is the class of that division, and Miami's finally starting to wake up and realize, hey, we were in the conference finals last year. We need to actually get going here. We're a much better team than we are than our record indicates.
Yeah, and I think they're riding the ship as we speak. They're going to get in. They're going to make noise. They're not going to be in the play-in tournament unless something catastrophic happens. And again, don't want that going on. You think they stay the 3? Actually, they end up being the 4 because the division winners get it. Or does the NBA not do that anymore?
I can't remember if they reseed those top 4. I'd have to go back and look over the last couple of standings, but I think they've got the potential, but I think they kind of fall back a little bit, not so much with their schedule or just running out of gas. I mean, me being Mr. Stats guy, they're currently, let's take tonight's win out of the equation because I think some apps are even still updating the stats on that. The Cavs had the best defense in the NBA going into tonight at allowing only 105.6 points per game. No other team was under 106.5, and the Cavs were a full point under that. Their margin of victory in terms of their points scored versus their points allowed was 7.1, and which was second in the NBA, only behind Boston, who's at 8 even. So they're getting their scoring. We all know that a JB Bickerstaff team is going to play phenomenal defense. We remember how great they were defensively last year, even after the wheels came off after the All-Star break. But they're now actually with Donovan Mitchell, they're starting to get the scoring to combine with the defense, and that is making this a very, very dangerous team just because Mitchell is playing at an MVP caliber. Darius Garland, after coming off the injury, they just announced that Dean Wade's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury earlier today.
Does this get Mobley's brother up from Canton?
I think I think you almost have to at this point just to actually be another body in the rotation. And what a performance by Karis LeVert coming off the bench lately. It's that when they clobbered Philly the other night, Karis LeVert had a game high 22 points off the bench.
Yeah, no, he's been great. Now, I sent this into the group chat with Alex and Willie and you the other day. Most wins by 10 points in the NBA. Cleveland Cavaliers have the most with 11. They also have the most wins by 20 points in the NBA with 4. Phoenix trails both of them by 1. The Pelicans and the Celtics each have 9 wins by 10 points or more. The Pelicans, Denver, and Phoenix all have 3 wins of 20 points or more. So this team is playing on both ends of the floor. They only gave up 92 points tonight, so that average point per game on their defense is going to go down.
Yeah, I just saw it updated here. They officially dropped to 105 even, which is now 1.6 points clear of the Sixers for best in the league. That point differential dropped to 6.3, which is actually now ironically enough, it dropped them from second all the way to 4th in the NBA.
Who's first in point differential?
The Suns at 8.3, the Celtics are 8.1, and then the Pelicans are 7 even.
Okay. Look, we said this was going to be a different team once they got Donovan Mitchell in-house. You and I said they were going to be outstanding. Willie was worried about the size thing. I think and the defense. But he has shown he has bought in to what Baker said.
I'm trying not to giggle with what you just said. Oh, I hope he doesn't watch this.
You know, I was going back and I watched that episode before when we talked to him about the deal. And when I mentioned Donovan Mitchell's father worked for the Mets, he said Kevin, as in Kevin Mitchell, who only played for the Mets for 1 year. I owe him one for that. I didn't catch it. He was laughing. Wise ass. No wonder he fits in so well with us.
Right. It's he's the spiritual successor to what this show, what this group was 20 years ago.
Oh God, yes. Keep mentioning how long we've known each other. Just makes me feel so much younger with my hair not on my head. Yeah, listen, I think they're gonna be all right. Where's the All-Star game this year?
I'm not exactly sure, but the Cavs' next opponent is on Tuesday night. Guess who's coming to town? It's homecoming.
Lakers? Really?
It is the TNT primetime game of the week.
Oh, good. I'll get All-Star games in Utah.
It's just always funny. I understand it's supposed to be, a rotation. They put it here at Romo Fijo after they renovated the whole arena, and it's now like one of the nicest arenas in the entire country. But now Utah jumps out fast, and then just the wheels have come completely off, and they're starting to get as bad as people thought that they were. Utah's going nowhere, and yet they've got an all-star game.
Well, of course, they put these things together years in advance. I mean, there have been 2 at the Jake.
Right.
So, I'm more on the aspect of if he's a starter in the Eastern Conference, that place is going to erupt when he's announced.
Yeah, it's and yet it's funny. It's because you don't have the bitterness as you did when they did the conference versus conference format. And now since they've actually kind of gone to the draft, because, he could get paired with somebody, whoever gets elected from Utah, they could be on the same team. So you're not going to boo the same guy in your own team. Kind of like last year where you had, Jared Allen and Darius Garland on Team LeBron, and LeBron, there's still a lot of people that vilify him in this town. It's
which is stupid.
Which is leaving twice. Yeah, he got us a title, but I mean, if a flat earther is here. And naturally, you get booed out of the building, for being a dipshit. But it's
You think the old man makeup from doing Uncle Drew leaked into his brain? Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh God.
Listen, here's why I said the whole vilify LeBron thing. The second time he did it right. The second time he did, this is where my family needs to be. This is what we need to do. There's not a person in Cleveland that don't understand that.
Yeah.
The first time was wholly terrible.
And let's also be honest, it's looking less and less and less likely that he's going to come back a third time.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. As much as, the softy in me would love to see
him break Craig's record here, yeah.
Or just one final ride in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's
finish where he started.
Yeah, but let's also, for him to be a Laker and break the all-time record held currently by a Laker, keep the record in Los Angeles, and
That's
then
cool.
let's be honest. Also, if he wants to play with his kid, what better scenario than number one? He's home, his kid is home, and their roster's a mess where they could actually use him.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Bryce has got a better jumper than both his father and his brother.
Yeah.
I saw some video. He's playing varsity.
He's not going to hang around 3 years for Bryce.
No, but Bryce already playing varsity at Sierra Canyon. Sorry, I slipped. So yeah, that's pretty big time there. That he's going to break that record. And you're right, just keeping it with a Laker would be nice. Especially with Kareem and Kareem still being here. So hopefully he'll be able to see when Bron does that, because that's going to be phenomenal.
And that's actually where, this is so appreciative of the age that we're in, is as we start seeing a lot of these, scoring records, broken, that we're so fortunate that the guys who records they're breaking are still here. When we've seen, Karl Malone reach out when he eclipsed him for second. We saw when he eclipsed Michael. We saw when he eclipsed unfortunately, we've lost Wilt years ago. As he's picking guys off the list, if they're around. When Alex Ovechkin breaks Gretzky's record in the next 2 years, because he's only, I think he's only like 103 goals away from breaking Gretzky's record, which at the pace that he's going is 3 more years, which he absolutely can do. Somebody actually put it out earlier this week. We all remember the legendary photo of Gretzky sitting on Gordie Howe's lap when he was a kid. And somebody put the photo up with the caption that says, "Two people, only both players in this picture have more goals than Alex Ovechkin. Very, very shortly, it's only going to be one of them." And just how ironic is it that we're there as McGuire, Sosa, and Judge and Bonds were all chasing down Roger Maris's record. Unfortunately, Roger's not been with us for a long, long time, and just not to take anything away from the record or anything like that. It's, sometimes the family is great, but you just kind of want to have, the actual person there.
Agreed. I mean, look at Maris's family was there when Judge hit 62 this year. They were there when McGuire hit 62. So, yeah, no, I agree. Having the family there is great, but having Kareem there is going to be even better.
And all signs point to that Kareem is not declining in health whatsoever. So it's not like it, it's not like, I'm sorry to say it, that nobody's ever going to break Bill Russell's record, and we lost him earlier this year. I'll tell you what, for all the individual records that are in the history of sports, I think the two that will never be broken in any of our lifetimes are going to be Gretzky's all-time scoring record and Russell's 11 championships. I think every other record out there is fair game. Even Brady's passing record. Somebody will put up 100,000 yards one day. Somebody will play that long.
I will say this. Do I think Russell's 11 will never be eclipsed? No, I don't. But more importantly, I don't think 11 in 13 years is going to be eclipsed. So, look, the Cavs have a great outlook, even without the LeBron thing coming in the next couple of years. Mitchell's inked, Garland's inked, Jared Allen is inked. That's the best part about this, is that they now have good contracts on the books as opposed to the crap they got left when LeBron was here the last time and bringing in all the veteran players.
Right.
So Kobe Altman has got to be applauded for this. This has been a phenomenal rebuild.
I'm not trying to play Debbie Downer here. What do you do with Isaac Okoro?
He's definitely got to play off the bench now. But he is still very serviceable on the defensive end. I think we all knew when they drafted Okoro, he was not a scoring monster. They accomplished that with Darius Garland. But you need him on the defensive end. He can still lock dudes down.
I've actually seen a lot. I've seen scuttlebutt out there that there's a possibility that they could end up finding a way to package LeVert and Okoro and maybe go out and get that star 3 that they want to complete that lineup.
But who do you go get?
Right.
But that's the thing. And this is, you and I talked about, and I'm going to go back to the college football thing in a second. After they lost to Michigan, a lot of people were saying Ryan Day needs to be fired. And my question is, who's your get?
Right.
It's not Fickle. He went to Wisconsin. Who's your get? The question is, who at that point in time would be the get for the Cavs to have? Not that can play. That's going to buy in. Because that is one thing that this entire roster has done to Bickerstaff's model, and that is they have all bought in. The Cavs brought in great locker room and character guys that will buy into that atmosphere and that mission. Porter would have been great.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have bought in, but Porter would be great to have. He plays 3. He can shoot the rock. He's playing really good in Houston, but he was an idiot. Porter been great to have right now. Oh my God, this team with him.
Yeah. But that could have potentially gone into the 1 ball, 5 guys mentality.
Yeah, but you know what though? I don't think you would have that with this type of coach. His last name carries weight. This isn't Mike Brown. No disrespect.
You know what?
Black.
You're right. There's a couple of guys with that caveat, the name recognition
Exactly.
that is going to command that level of authority. And I'm sorry, there's only 2 guys I can think of right now. One name is Bickerstaff and the other is Nelson.
I agree with you. Had he not been the coach of a veteran-laden team, Walton would have been another one.
Yeah.
Oh, look who's on JB's staff. You got Hall of Fame names on this staff. These dudes know to listen. Plus the character guys. This has been a phenomenal rebuild. Those morons by the lake should take some notes. Look, I don't know if our guest is coming, but I'm really getting to have a hard time of holding my tongue. You want to do this?
Let's do it.
Hold on 1 second. I got to get ready for this. We got to get ready for this because we're just doing this old school now. We're doing this old school now.
Our like the only thing missing is like your chain and going chain gang soldier John Cena, But the one thing that on this channel, Mike Martinez, the Big Rican himself, has refused to discuss and I'm taking the lead on this one.
Oh, good.
The one thing that Mike Martinez has refused to discuss on this has been the Cleveland Browns in post-game reactions. This is also the first Sunday night episode we've done in a very long time. And we did this, and we did this for a specific reason. Tonight we saw the on-field debut for the first time in 703 or 704 days of one Deshaun Watson. For those of you who have been living basically on Pluto,
or under a fucking rock.
Right. The Cleveland Browns traded 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. A third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and then signed for $250 million guaranteed to the Houston Texans to acquire the services of quarterback Deshaun Watson, who, again, did not play in over 700 days. Yes, he was injured for a good chunk of part of that, but Michael, would you like to discuss why the other half of that is true?
This scumbag son of a bitch. Listen, thank God this is on our channel.
Right.
Because, okay, first of all, he was not injured. He was benched for being a petulant child. He was benched because he didn't get a roster the way he wanted it to and decided to quit on the Houston Texans. Let's put that out there right now.
I'd like to actually put a pin in that here for one brief second, or kind of put a pin in your momentum. Earlier this week, I was actually listening to Cleveland Sports Talk Radio, and they brought somebody on in the Houston market, who ironically enough used to be in the Cleveland market and then went over to Houston while the entire thing went down. And yes, he did quit on his team, but it was also, and this isn't by no way, shape, or form to let Deshaun Watson off the hook, but there was a lot of discussion with the fact of Bill O'Brien had absolutely no authoritarian control over that locker room, that the atmosphere in Houston was so toxic that Watson wanted out and decided to sit until he got his way. But that is still no excuse. You're under contract. You should be playing. But there was no, to bring it back to the Ohio State argument, I'm going to throw a term out that you'd be familiar with: institutional control.
Yep. Jim Tressel. Okay, I get that. But let me ask a very serious question. Because what year was Deshaun Watson in when he decided to sit down like a little girl? Year 4.
The end of 2019.
James, what would Cleveland radio media done to Baker Mayfield, who went through 4 coaches in 3 seasons, done if he decided to do the same thing?
Well, considering half of the town was trying to run him out while he still had them in the playoff hunt last year.
This is what I'm talking about. So let's talk about him. Let's talk about the fact that the Browns needed a punt return, a pick 6, and that's basically how they won the game today.
Yeah, it was a punt return. It was it was a pick 6, although it was a 16-yard return, and it was a fumble recovery, and this is what pisses me off about this. Not even so much, what he did, and we're going to talk about his performance because I did watch the game. But it's also the fact that it's gonna look good on Joe Woods as a defensive coordinator that he had more points with his crew than the entire Texans offense today. But also the fact that it's going to look like Denzel Ward had a good game because Ward scored a touchdown off of a fumble where he was the only one on the field that actually saw where the ball was or would have been in that kind of position, considering he got fucking trucked in the first quarter.
Okay, let me go back and tell you one thing. The Houston Texans, who are 1-9-1, average
1-10-1 now.
1-10. Oh, sorry, are 1-10-1. You know how many points a game they average?
They're one of you can count on the number of teams that have not scored 200 points yet, and the Texans are at the lowest end of that list.
They averaged 15 points a game. They scored 14 today, which means they did what they normally do, and they just made more mistakes. That's what this came down to, because he played like shit.
Yes.
So
he was terrible.
So, as you see, I'm fired up about this for two reasons. One, this is the Kevin Costner trade. This is the Sonny Weaver trade, but not having the balls to call the guy from Houston a pancake-eating motherfucker and get picks back. This is a flawed roster that has no first-round picks and has people in Cleveland actually thinking that Denzel Ward will get them a number one pick. No. There is one player on that roster that would get you a first-round pick, and that's Myles Garrett. And if you trade Myles Garrett, the part of the fan base that's saying Deshaun Watson's a savior will run for the hills and start rooting for the Bengals.
Keep going.
As far as, let me get the off-field stuff out of the way. And people have asked me, how come our good friend Nick Credes, who I know is close with your best friend, it's his cousin, he asked me an interesting question the other night, James, and I'm going to tell you this on air so it can be seen. He said, what if he gets him in a Super Bowl? I got two words for you.
Oh, sorry.
Exactly. And it's not scissor me. I said that at work the other day. Anyway,
I almost wore it tonight. You know what? It's getting worn on the Christmas episode.
Very good. Never mind his numbers. The off-field stuff. We all know what's going on. Here's why I can't replace it. I have a 21-year-old daughter who will be 22 soon. I'd go to jail. I'm not a violent person. I'd go to jail.
Right.
So now let's talk about my on-field issues with this. Everybody says, "Oh,
let's hold off on that for one moment. Let's stay with the off the field stuff." We were going to bring this up with our guest,
who hopefully will still get on here at some point in time.
Right. It came out actually earlier in the week that 10 of his victims, let's call them victims because that's what they are.
What they are.
And attorney Tony Busby, who represented them, were in attendance at today's game, marking the first time that Watson will have actually faced many of these women in person. Mike, you brought up a very, very good point when you and I were on the phone. I want to say it was Tuesday night or Wednesday. Would you like to actually elaborate on that?
You're asking the dad of a 19-month-old to remember Wednesday. Give me a minute. My days start very early, James. And I've had my mind elsewhere too.
It had to do with the thought of these women being in attendance.
Oh. I thought it was great. They're basically standing up and saying, yeah, you don't deserve what you got. Look what you did this. And you were basically rewarded for it. And our guest said the same thing on Twitter. You saw it. And that's my opinion as well. Someone came at me with the Kareem Hunt thing. And I said, he paid. This dude didn't. This dude got paid. If you remember Kareem Hunt, what he did was deplorable. But he was exemplist, released, suspended. Think about what he lost by doing that. Who won a Super Bowl a year and a half later?
Right.
He'd have a Super Bowl ring. And possibly two. Because I think if they would have had Kareem Hunt in the backfield, they would have beaten Tampa.
There's no doubt in my mind they would have beaten Tampa.
So Kareem Hunt lost the possibility of 2 Super Bowl rings, whatever endorsement that goes with it. He was suspended, released, and on the commissioner's exempt list. And he had to get a bone thrown at him by John Dorsey. And he went through all the legal stuff as well. This dude pulled this crap and got handed $230 million. And a suspension, 11 games is 11 games. He didn't lose any money. He got paid a $5 million fine, but he got $43 million of his salary this year in a signing bonus.
And then whatever the settlement was for the payout.
Which we'll never know because that's sealed.
Right.
But
and to make matters worse, the first game back, they give him against his old team.
Who's garbage.
Thinking there's going to be a firestorm. And yeah, it's a tune-up game. Had he actually been – what if the NFL would have done some sort of PR move and held him out this week and made it 12 games and made him come back next week against Cincinnati?
Oh.
In the jungle.
Do you want to know what I hope happens next week? I hope Joe Burrow finally beats the Browns. He never beat Baker Mayfield.
No, he didn't.
How hilarious would that be? Who, by the way, big shout out to the Bengals today for beating Kansas City. They've beaten them 3 times in a row.
I was just, you know what? They were actually bringing it up because I saw the very, very early part of the broadcast while I was writing up the TCU pieces. They said what a rivalry this is actually going to be turning into. It's like, but sorry, you can't really call it a rivalry because it's only half a season old.
Yeah, because they beat him early January last year, then they beat him in the AFC Championship game, and then they beat him today, right?
Right.
Okay.
You can't call it a rivalry. You hope it's going to turn into.
I think with those 2 quarterbacks, it will.
You're hoping it's going to turn into Brady versus Manning, but here's also the other aspect, and this is my bias going to come out. A certain individual named Josh Allen's got a very, very big problem with you actually saying this is going to be the marquee quarterback matchup for the foreseeable future.
He's got to beat Patrick first before he can have a problem with it.
He would have beat Patrick last year had the overtime rules not been fucked.
Well, we found that out again today when the Commanders and the Giants tied, because the NFL is the only place where kissing your sister outside of Alabama is okay.
And hands down, that was the best game of the day. Regardless of the Jets coming back. And here's how friggin' hilarious is that Jacksonville, of all teams, plays spoilers for the Minnesota Vikings not being able to clinch before any other team in football's even got a prayer.
That's crazy.
The Philadelphia Eagles have the best record in the NFL, and they're in a dogfight in that division. But yet the Minnesota Vikings, the team that nobody expected to be where they were, could have actually clinched still with 5 games to go. And by Jacksonville laying an egg against Detroit, of all teams, they got to wait until next week to clinch.
That's crazy.
I mean, Philly could have clinched a playoff spot, but they're actually not going to be able to clinch. We might be looking at Christmas before they can clinch the NFC East.
Yeah. I just got a message from our guest. There was an incident that she had to take care of, and she said she's down to come on. She had a lot to say, so we'll get her on, but there was some stuff that came up. I'm just going to respond to her real quick. I'm going to invite her in 2 weeks.
Okay. We can also even do a potential off-air thing if it works better, and then actually.
Yeah, we'll get into semantics with her.
You know what? We might even be able to do a letting you guys kind of behind the curtain a little bit. We might even be able to kind of record it off air when it's time, and then just kind of put the interview up on its own, as opposed to incorporate it into the show.
Yeah, we'll work schedules with her on getting that done. So I refuse to watch them while he's their starting quarterback. I think that'll end after year 3 because I don't think they're going to do anything. There are too many holes that they have no capital to fill.
Right.
None.
They lost Sione Takitaki at middle linebacker today, and that actually is now the second starting middle linebacker outside of Anthony Walker that they lost. Who are you going to go get? You got no capital to do it.
Well, this year they do because his salary is low and Amari Cooper's salary is low. But going into next year, you're paying Denzel an exorbitant amount of money. If I'm Myles Garrett, I'm opting out and going, pay me. I keep this. I kept the butts in the seats while this team was crap. Pay me. His full boat kicks in next year. Amari Cooper's over $20 million next year. They got like $165 million, 5 players.
Right.
JOK is going to have to get paid. He's starting to get better. Grant Delpit, same thing. Who's starting to play a little better.
I was going to say it's because honestly, between him and Greedy Williams, they couldn't have played any worse.
Agreed, but Delpit's starting to come around. That Achilles, they say, takes about 2 years to really get to the point where you're back to what you were. And he's about there now. Let's see. Newsome is going to have to be paid if you want to keep a good defender on the other side of Denzel, who you are locked into.
And then let's also keep in mind that I think the contract extension where David Njoku kicks in next year.
Yeah. I don't.
And also, let's after. I still think he's on. I still think he hits 1,000 yards this year. You're gonna have to pay DPJ, who I brought up on the reaction, is very, very quickly turning into not only the punt returner or the specialist that they've been basically platooning guys in and out of for the last 2 years, but he's also now become a very, very valuable second option to Amari Cooper. And if you actually add Njoku in there, he's now actually become the third best target on this team because we know he can go deep. And now he's got a quarterback who can throw the deep ball in Watson. Let's actually Watson is very, very skilled, but yeah, he can make the throws. It's going to take some time for him to knock some of this rust off. Next year, completely different scenario that we could actually be looking at this team as potential contender. But for this year, it's an absolute mess. How did the line go from Major League? You're going down in flames, and there's a very good majority that want to be there when they go splat.
Here's where I disagree with you on next year. It's his 11-11 record outside of a dome.
Right.
He's going to play 11 games outside next year.
And then let's look at the rest of their schedule. With their 5 games left, you go down to the jungle next week.
Outdoors.
You get Baltimore, who's going to be missing Lamar Jackson conveniently now for extended, late in the year.
But the defense is still good, and it's outdoors.
Right. And these are in no particular order. You still have to play Washington, who's a potential playoff team. You get Pittsburgh on the road where you've never played well, and you got the Saints, who are probably the most up and down team in that division, and yet still somehow we're in contention.
Yeah. So here's what's left. All right. So next Sunday at Cincinnati. The Sunday after, home for Baltimore. Christmas Eve, home for New Orleans. In Washington, in Pittsburgh. He's playing outdoors every game.
Right.
By what his record is.
No, the Saints game is indoors.
No, it's not. It's in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's in Cleveland.
Here's the other aspect about that, though, that the only benefit that he can actually have is 3 of those games are on turf. Pittsburgh plays on turf, Cincinnati plays on turf, Baltimore plays on turf.
I thought Pittsburgh was natural grass.
You're right about that. Cincinnati's on turf. Baltimore's on turf. Saints are here. Commanders.
Natural grass.
grass, and then at Pittsburgh is yeah, you're right. They are on grass. It's because we've
So
always
they've got two.
we've
but they've
always
got-
joke about the women in Pittsburgh.
Do you know someone said online? They said, "Oh look, Bill Cosby Roethlisberger's playing today."
Oh, Mike, whatever do you mean? Trying to find the right damn button. Would you by chance mean that?
Oh no, that's R. Kelly, because today Deshaun Watson looked like he pissed himself instead of on someone else like R. Kelly does. All right, so the NFL memes Instagram account put up a 10-panel thing where the first panel is Bill Cosby's head superimposed on Deshaun Watson and his stats from today. One of them was 0 sexual assaults, which is a record. The next panel was that. The third panel was him standing there with Cosby on the back of his jersey. Another one was, it said Deshaun Watson coming out of the tunnel. It's Bill Cosby walking out of court.
How many people are actually going to end up doing shit like that when they are here against the Ravens in 2 weeks?
How many people are going to do that when they play in Pittsburgh? He doesn't
Right.
understand listen, they're insane. I work for a Yinzer. My DM is from Pittsburgh. They're salivating. How many years did the Browns do this to Roethlisberger?
That is very, very true. And I'll tell you what, you've got no kind of stake in this because you're cheering against them. I'm actively cheering against them while he's, the starting quarterback. But yet, as a Browns fan, there's got to be even some level of optimism that, yeah, he's a scumbag, but he's honestly their best shot at a winner.
I can't separate it. I'm sorry. I can't.
Right. That's the problem. We've never experienced this before.
No.
We've had a couple of character guys here in this town, but we've never had one that had this level of skill set that could actually put a franchise potentially on their back.
He's already proven he can't.
Right.
He's already proven he can't. Because let's go over this. And everybody's like, oh, well, he led the league in passing. That's great. They were 4-12. They played in Cleveland that year. That was the 10-7 game. So your franchise quarterback outside on a bad day put up 7 points.
Right. And most of those were in garbage time.
And let's talk about one other thing. No disrespect to Amari Cooper. Great wide receiver. If anybody out there thinks he's DeAndre Hopkins, you're fucking stupid.
Right.
That's number one. Number two. The year he won his playoff game when they won the AFC South, by the way, that's the year Andrew Luck did not play. That was before Derrick Henry had a competent quarterback.
Right.
He had 6 Pro Bowlers, 2 of whom were first-team All-Pros. By the way, the Pro Bowlers on the defensive side of the ball, one was named Jadeveon Clowney, the other was named J.J. Watt. Now, yes, he was one of the Pro Bowlers. He did go. Much respect. Again, if you think Amari Cooper is prime DeAndre Hopkins, I have a IQ test for you because you're stir-crazy stupid. This is not the best team he's ever been on. That Texans team that went to the playoffs back-to-back seasons, won a playoff game, and then got the doors blown off him in the second half. That was the year Kansas City was down multiple scores every single game and beat the hell out of everybody in the second half.
Yep.
That was the best team he was on. This team has a ton of holes. As much as you think DPJ can be a number 2 in this league, I disagree with you 100%. I said it when he came out in the draft. I thought he was a great third option. Cooper is a number 1. I will give you that. Amari Cooper is a number 1. But you're an Amari Cooper injury away from the Bad News Bears without Kelly Leak.
Yeah, but if you're the Browns right now, you hope that Cooper stays healthy enough through the rest of the year where DPJ can now also start getting his looks. And this is also where I think the David Njoku injury, him not playing today, actually kind of hurt Watson a little bit because he didn't actually have that safety blanket. Farrell Brown and Harrison Bryant were not David Njoku. They are not potential Pro Bowl tight ends. And I understand
I agree with
he
you.
had a previous connection with Farrell Brown, but David Njoku is a top 10 tight end in this league.
I think Harrison Bryant could have been if he wasn't misused when he first came out.
That's
because he was tight end of the year in college at Washington State. If they didn't, if he came out the year they went and got Austin Hooper, and they made Hooper the main tight end and Njoku the second option there.
Right.
So Harrison Bryant was misused coming out. I think him being, I think if he was used properly, it would have been better, and he would be farther along now. One thing this Browns coaching staff has not done is really develop any players. And you know what? That's top down. That's the entire organization really hasn't developed any players. Outside of Miles.
You can't. Well, let's call it what it is. Miles was dominant right out the gate. Nick Chubb was dominant out the gate. That's not development. That's just pure skill. But you're right. Nobody really outside of maybe MJ Stewart and Taki, they've really not developed anyone. And those guys are not all pros. They're starters. They're very capable players, but you're right. They are not next level.
But what's the one thing that the players you just said that were dominant coming out have in common? They weren't drafted by Andrew Berry.
Right.
John Dorsey drafted Nick Chubb, and he was a steal. Who was the GM before Dorsey? Was it Sashi?
Yeah.
Sashi drafted Miles Garrett. They haven't developed anyone.
Right.
I will say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, and I've said it to you before. I firmly believe, and I'm a Browns fan by having moved there. I was there when they left. We were friends then. I was there when they came back. I have had love for the franchise since the 80s when I used to go out and visit my uncle. There is no fan base, none, no matter how many cinders are left when it happens, that deserves a Super Bowl more than the Cleveland Browns fans. I fully believe that 100%. I cannot endorse it with this guy under center. I can't. I'm sorry. And everybody's like, oh, you're a Baker bro. No, he's better than Baker. I'll tell you that straight out. He's better than Baker. His skill set is better. His mobility is better. His athleticism is better. His arm is comparable because I think Baker's got a cannon. I can't separate it.
Because the one thing that he is not better than Baker Mayfield at
is being a human being.
I was just going to say is the intangible factor of being a character guy. Mike, you wanted me to bring this up to you, and you wanted to pose the question. And when we actually interview our guest, and Mike, would you actually like to discuss who that is?
Our guest is Natalie Turk, who is the SI Cleveland beat writer for the Cleveland Guardians. She is also, Northeast Ohio?
Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders.
She's also running Northeast Ohio Sports Insiders. I'm sorry, what is the gentleman's name who passed away?
Matt Lodi.
Matt Lodi. She's running that for Matt. Natalie is, not only does she have her ear to the ground when it comes to baseball, because she is an absolute insanely talented baseball writer, she is also someone who loves Cleveland sports. And she is on the same side of this as I am. Now, she may be able to separate it. I don't know. I haven't had that conversation with her. I plan on asking her that question tonight. And I will when I talk to her. But unfortunately, I am of the mind. I can't.
The question that you wanted, that you asked me to bring up, and we were going to pose to Natalie, more specifically you, your take on Deshaun Watson only answering football questions in practice and after tonight's game.
Absolute crap. Because you are the starting quarterback, you are the face of the franchise, you were handed $230 million guaranteed dollars. You did not play the first 11 weeks because of non-football stuff. You need to answer it all. You need to stand in front of your locker, and you need to take your beatings. Because the national media hasn't had a hit. Could you imagine if the Jets or the Giants signed him, what they would do to him in New York?
If Zach Wilson could get clobbered for all the jokes that he actually has about going out with people's moms or whatever, or the crap that Joe Burrow takes, or let's peel back all the layers and let's go in on this.
Okay.
Kareem Hunt answered for
every question, and he answered for every question that was posed to him, football and non-football.
Ray Lewis. It took him a little while, but answered every question that there was.
You are the face of a franchise. You are a franchise quarterback, according to every idiot in Brown's Twitter. Your franchise is 4-7 because you did something.
5-7.
Up until today. Your franchise is 4-7 because you did something stupid off the field and got your ass suspended. Answer everything. Shut up. Only going to answer football questions. Here's a football question. Deshaun, where the hell you been instead of under center? It's simple. It's simple.
The only saving grace about this, as far as you and I are concerned, is the fact that he faces two of the toughest and meanest defenses in all of football the next 2 weeks, and they are going to light his ass up.
Patrick Queen's going to knock him in the next week. And I know Sam Hubbard's licking his chops. So is Von Bell. Of course, Eli Apple will probably cost him the game getting torched. Notice they're all Buckeyes I talked about except Patrick Queen.
What happens if they somehow, some way, I honestly don't even know if it's mathematically possible for them to get in at this point. It might just be a formality. But what happens if they go on a run and let's say they win 4 out of these last 5 and finish just below 500?
I think it's optimism for next season. I think it's good for the franchise. But I don't believe it is going to be a harbinger of long-term sustained excellence out of this team.
Let me pose the question now that I just brought up 2 of the names I just a second ago. And we have to ask this to Natalie when she's on with us. What if this offseason he sits down? Because the entire problem I think we've had with this whole thing is the maintaining of his innocence the entire time when there's evidence, largely.
The NFL arbitrator called you a predator.
Would you at all, I don't want to say change stance, because again, you've got a 20-year-old daughter.
No.
Would you, if he actually did come out and apologize or show remorse or I don't want to say atone, because there's no real way to ever atone for something like that. If he started doing, let's say, I'm not even going to say a full 180, but if he came around at least maybe 120 degrees from his stance now and what he's maintained for the last 9 months, could you potentially, I don't want to say follow this franchise, but could you actually maybe even start to cheer or wish well for this franchise the next 4 years of his contract? Would that potential Super Bowl or deep playoff appearance not have that Pyrrhic victory attached to it?
It would be tough, being very honest. It would be very tough. Let me put it this way. I love the New York Mets. You know that. I bleed orange and blue every day of my life.
And we're going to come back to them here in just
when Jose Reyes was accused, and it turned out it wasn't him that was doing anything, I don't wear my Jose Reyes t-shirt anymore. My David Wright one comes on every chance I get. I don't wear it. When we found out it wasn't him that did anything, but unfortunately in those situations, the male is the one who gets escorted away. My stance softened a little bit, but he still put himself in that situation. I will say this. My stance will soften a little bit. It will not get to the point where I will be standing with you on the 480 bridge, watching it burn if it happens. I'll probably give a thumbs up. I will say congratulations. I will send out my congratulatory to all my friends and family who are out there who have been longing for this for the better part of 3 decades. I personally would not partake in any parties for it, but I wouldn't be wishing ill on them anymore.
You would probably have the t-shirt, but you wouldn't so much wear it. You'd have it just to say that you've got a piece of the merchandise
Exactly.
when they finally broke the curse.
And it would be a hat because they never sell the right shirts in the big guy sizes.
Yeah, but it's like, something you'd be able to, like, mount on a wall or put on a hanger or something,
Or something that I would have, like I have a box that's in our storage unit that is nothing but the newspapers and stuff from when the Mets went to the World Series last.
Mhm.
It's not something I would pull on. I don't wear the Big Rican shirt I had made with the Browns logo right now. I'd probably start wearing that again. Does Bobby wear his Baker Mayfield onesie? Yes, he does. But no, I wore my Baker. I almost wore the Baker T-shirt a few weeks ago just to see what you'd do. It still would be a tough call for me because again, this is as a father of a 20-plus-year-old young woman. I'm pretty sure he wasn't having older women do this stuff for him and what he did. I think that's where my anger comes from. I think that people who would hear my side of the story would say, okay, I get it. But I've also had on-field issues with this move, which I've kept to until you asked me the question now. The on-field issues I have, I think, are going to be more problematic for the Browns than the PR nightmare they're going through right now. I know you would. I sorry that was so long-winded, but
No, the floor is yours. Keep going. You're on a roll.
yeah, I really am, right?
You've been waiting 9 months to really go in on this, and now I got my 2 cents out earlier with the reaction video. You've seen a lot of what I've discussed with you. I kind of brought up in the Browns react. So I've already had my say. This is your first time live on air to basically let it all out. Just go.
So let's go with my on-field issues. Let's go with the 11-11 record outside of a dome or a retractable roof. Let's go with the fact that he's now playing 11 games in the elements every year. He hasn't played well in the playoffs when he's in the elements. He hasn't played well in Cleveland in the elements. But you handed him $230 million. You have hamstrung this franchise for the next 5 to 7 years, if not longer. Because guess what? When his contract is up, he ain't staying here a second time.
Or when when the whole thing blows up in the next 2 to 3 years and you got to buy him out, that still counts against the cap.
Counts against the cap. And then you got to draft a quarterback. Because I love it. It's home to me. It'll always be home to me. No one goes to Cleveland on purpose. In the sporting world, anyway. Unless they're playing LeBron. There's no LeBron in this franchise. Kevin Stefanski's going to get next year to prove it. Watch. If they don't make the playoffs next year, Stefanski's gone. If they don't make the playoffs next year, Andrew Berry's gone.
At the very least, we're going to see the full Browns arsenal next year with somebody competent, because Joe Woods not going to have a job at the end of this year. Thank God.
I don't think Alex Van Pelt will either.
I don't think it's Alex Van Pelt's fault, because you got an offensive coordinator who should be calling plays who basically has been cut off at the knees.
I will say this until the day I die. Cleveland Browns have one playoff win in the last however many years. Kevin Stefanski was not the play caller. Alex Van Pelt was. Of course, we'll see how the quarterback does moving forward. For all the things he does well, he does a lot well. He's a great quarterback. He is. I'm not taking that away from him. He grew up in Georgia. He went to Clemson. He got drafted by Houston. He doesn't play in the cold. I mean, I made a joke to you months ago, but could the first snowflakes he saw, could they have been in April in Berea? Other than in Kansas City, where they ran the hell out of the football in the first half?
Right.
And they got smoked because he couldn't do anything to bring them back?
They play on grass. It's not a track meet.
It's not. You can't run a track meet at First Energy. You can't. You're going to get a game where the field is frozen.
You're going to get multiple games where the field is frozen. It's because two of the teams in this division play on turf where you can have a track meet. Problem is, you've got 8 outdoor games where the weather is where the second Labor Day comes around, the weather gets incredibly unpredictable.
When was that game in 2019 or 2020 with Houston and Cleveland?
November,
early in the season.
Yeah.
No, it was early in the season. It was earlier than that. It had to have been earlier than that because it was rain that was the issue. It was November 15th. Okay.
Here's also the weird thing about this franchise right now. They are 5-7. They're still not even showing up in the hunt graphic in the playoff race, but yet their point differential is only a -10.
They've played some close games, but that's given up multiple scores in the fourth quarter. And as I said on Twitter to somebody, unless he gains 90 pounds and plays deep tackle, he can't stop the run.
Right.
And if he's so good, how come when they lost that game in November of 2020, they were 2-7? I've asked this question. I asked it when the trade was made. I said it on my own show. I'm going to say it to you. What's he won? What's he won?
Outside of a national championship, nothing.
Okay. Do you know who the most efficient passer in a single season in NFL history was?
Joe Namath?
Chad Pennington.
I knew it had to be a Jet.
He did it twice. Once with the Jets, once with the Dolphins. Chad got farther in the playoffs, got more playoff wins. In successive weeks, Chad Pennington led an offense in 1 year, 3 weeks in a row, that beat Tom Brady in New England, Brett Favre in New York, and Peyton Manning shut him out.
You know, the scary thing is I actually was going through Facebook about maybe 2 hours before the game today, and somebody threw out the graphic. I can't remember what site it was, but it actually showed all 32 teams in the NFL and the number of playoff wins they've had in the Super Bowl era. The Browns were 5th last.
We figure it was the Sam Rutigliano years, the cardiac hits. It was the Marty Schottenheimer years, where they were eyelashes from 3 Super Bowls. Belichick had a year, and then they went away. They had 1 season they made it to the playoffs with Tim Couch as their quarterback, and then they had the Baker year.
Right. You probably already know who's like at or near the top of that list, but you want to take a guess who without looking, you want to take a guess who's at the bottom of that list?
The Jets. No, I'm just kidding. Super Bowl era.
Fewest playoff victories, not appearances, but overall victories.
Colts.
The Detroit Lions.
Oh, yeah. I'm so stupid. Yeah.
1.
That was with Barry Sanders.
Whole host of playoff appearances, a whole lot of early exits.
Wow. It's Detroit. What time is it? Week.
Yeah, and it's a school night.
That's the text I just got. Was don't be up too late. I have to work tomorrow. Truth be told, that's why I showered and shaved tonight.
And my office partner is injured, and they wanted her to miss 2 weeks, so I actually got to pull 10 to 12 hours each of the next 2 days, and then
Wednesday you said you're off, right?
What's that?
Wednesday you said you're off, right?
Half day. It's like I'm leaving at like noon. Her first day back. She fractured her finger. It's I guess tripped over the cat, fell into the wall.
Wow.
It's and like went to stop herself and like cracked a digit. So it's so they wanted her to take a couple of weeks off, and it's she actually told them without actually talking with any of us. I'm taking 4 days. So she'll be back. And then I got my physical, and then
the backtrack to the Mets. I'm going to save because I'm going to do something for the Buckeye Georgia game. So I'll save that for tonight.
Are you sure you don't want to go into it? Because we could actually talk very, very briefly about the other thing that you and I discussed before we went on air. We could actually take 5 minutes or so.
All right. So I had a rough week starting last Saturday in the unceremonious ass kicking that Ohio State took. Mom's been ill, so I had some stuff there. And then news came down the other night that Jacob deGrom accepted a 5-year, $185 million contract to go to a team that won 68 games last year. I am not – that was a gut punch. And I understand free agency, and I understand players are going to move, and I get it. He seemed like he wanted out. This was my generation's Tom Seaver. That is where Jacob deGrom was for the New York Mets. He was going to be up on the wall with Hernandez and Piazza and Seaver. Yes, Willie and Jerry Koosman. Yes, Willie Mays' number 24 was retired last year, but that was done because of a promise made by the Mets' first owner, Joan Payson, when Willie Mays was reacquired in 1972. Jacob deGrom was going to earn that 48 up there. That one hurt. I'm not going to lie. That one hurt. It was must-see TV in New York when he would pitch. I said to Jim before we started the show, it looks like they're going to end up signing Justin Verlander. That's great. JV's a great pitcher. Kate Upton in Mets gear is going to be nice to look at. Can't see Kate Moss anyway. If you ever saw the Family Guy episode, falls through the floor.
I'm sorry to rain on your parade and everything, but it's Kate Upton just all warm and fuzzy now.
Agreed. And don't tell Brady, but she's going to let Justin pitch till he's 45. Oh God, I hate him. Anyway, that was a gut punch for him to go to a team that was absolute garbage, and to not give the Mets a chance to make a final offer bothers me more. Here's the silver lining. The New York Mets won 101 games last year, and Jacob deGrom didn't pitch until August 2nd. They kind of know what they're doing in New York now. But I will say this. Jake, thanks for the memories. Thank you for giving me the feeling once again of what it was like when I was a young kid and Dwight Gooden would take the mound. Thank you for being this generation's Tom Seaver. Thank you for being the best pitcher in baseball and wearing blue and orange for as long as you did. He came up in 2014. He was supposed to be a spot bullpen guy. They had injuries. They put him in the rotation. He won a Rookie of the Year, 2 Cy Youngs, and went to the All-Star game 4 times. Thanks for the memories, Jake. But we'll see you at the end of August and we'll kick your ass. I'm done.
And the other thing we wanted to discuss tonight, very, very briefly, Oh, one thing going back to the Watson thing. Got to get this joke in. With Watson, whereas Kyle Allen, most of his throws were high. If Watson was throwing so low, couldn't they have actually just stayed with Baker if they wanted those throws to be low?
I got one more for you. When he threw the interception, someone actually put a caption on that video and said, "See, not the first time we tried to put his ball someplace it weren't supposed to be."
And I got to take huge umbrage with the Houston fan base. The booing was loud, but it wasn't nearly what it should have been, because Houston, I'm sorry, the worst fan base in all of sports, for my money. They've
Any
got
Houston team, or just the Texans?
all of them in the aggregate. They've celebrated 3 Astros World Series titles, and they cheated for 2 of them.
Actually, they never had any evidence they did it in the postseason.
Either way, they got there through that.
Yeah.
So you got the cheater Astros. They're so bandwagon when it comes to the Rockets, and then the Texans. Strip it down to the screws, and yeah, I get they were not going to sell out today's game, but you'd figure there had to be some part of the population that was going to show up for their pound of flesh and didn't.
You got to remember, Houston tells much of the same story Cleveland does, as far as the football team goes.
First Energy Stadium still sells more than 85 to 90% capacity.
That's because Browns fans are a cult.
Even when they're shit.
That's because Browns fans are a cult. That city has been to the NBA Finals the Cleveland now. The NBA Finals 5 times, 3 World Series since I moved there in 1993. And it's still a Browns town. I understand football is big in Ohio. I understand it's a birthplace. The Canton's right up the road. Houston not showing up reminded me of the Gardos being in first place in June and no one there. Or no, not June. In August, being in first place, and the Browns have a preseason game.
Yeah.
That's what today reminded me of.
Although I think that changes next year.
I don't know. I don't.
They bring back most of the same team, and also and I can't believe I'm actually breaking my my baseball freeze out by even thinking about this. But then the talk of them possibly going out and getting that stud catcher.
I don't want you to break your freeze out, but I will say this. I firmly believe it would have been a Browns town even in the mid-90s had the Browns still been there.
That is true, but there's a very, very big part of that right after the stadium opened, that the Indians at the time were the best thing in all of baseball, the best team never to have won a title, and then selling out for 5 straight years.
And I went to many of those games, and I still think it would have been a Browns town had they not been in Baltimore. You would have ran into the same stuff. If they would have gotten the stadium and he would have stayed, Indians could have won 2 titles. Still would have been a Browns town.
Going back to baseball, the thing that you brought up to me right before we went on the air.
Congratulations, Fred McGriff. It is about time the crime dog. By the way, that was unanimous on that 16-person poll that he got in. Crime Dog's in the Hall of Fame. Now, here's a question. What hat? Toronto, San Diego, or Atlanta?
Atlanta. No doubt in my mind, it's got to be Atlanta.
Not Tampa? Kidding. I'm kidding. It's Atlanta. So, James, let's wrap this sucker up. And let's tell everybody about 2 weeks from yesterday.
Coming up, December 17th, Saturday night, prime time, We might even start a little early that night because Michael is not going to have to put Bobby to sleep that night.
Nobody's going to bed.
Not necessarily. It will be the final Wise Guys Sports Show of 2022. It will be our second free-for-all. Every guest that has kind of bailed, I don't want to say bailed, but has
been unable to attend.
If they're unable to attend this one, they're not going to get invited back for the rest of the year. Blah, 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 blah. Because it'll be our last show of the year. So it is the first annual and hopefully one of very, very many Wise Guys holiday send-off free-for-all bash, where that's a working title in progress at this point. It will be 10, 15 minutes worth of actual sports talk, and then it's going to be about 90 minutes worth of a clusterfuck.
I think
there will be alcohol, there will be jokes, there will be pop quizzes, there will be random things going up on your screen. We don't even know what that is. There will be soundboards, there will be chaos.
In other words, it's a 12 Days of Wise Guys Christmas. That's what we should call it.
That's actually brilliant because it's 12 days until that next episode. The 17th, today's the 4th.
You see, James, it's 13 days. But you see, James,
we can't do a second show on the same day.
There was caffeine in this cup at the beginning of the show. It worked. Yeah, that wasn't.
The other thing that you're also going to see potentially here is throughout the course of that night, you're going to see some of the production value that Mike and I put into this one. You're going to see, I think next weekend is going to be me just doing nothing but cutting myself off from the world for like the last time before the holidays, and putting together some of the Wise Guys shorts that some of you guys have talked about. Some of the things that we have talked about, I don't want to say kind of our greatest hits, but it is going to be certainly the more off the rail moments of the Wise Guys show.
Please tell me you're leading off with the jersey.
What's that?
Please tell me you're leading off with the jersey.
Oh, the jersey will be in there because I will be able to finally get that. I've not gotten around to downloading and cutting that. Recutting that video. So if you actually see that on the shorts where the clip is supposed to end, it just keeps playing.
Oh.
That's only supposed to be about a 58-second clip, but it actually is. It's like it jumps in where it's supposed to. It's not like the previous shorts that we've had.
I'll try and keep my mouth shut this time too.
That will be in there.
Oh man,
that will be. And now and depending on who else comes on, we may actually just kind of put a countdown or like a compilation together of that.
Well, we got to tell Alex
in a separate video that won't be live.
Yeah, we got to tell Alex, make sure he's on. Outside of that, for Big Weekend, we're going to do probably the 30th. I will do a full Peach Bowl preview. And I will have a Big Weekend Hot Stove episode coming in the next few weeks as well. I got to get Willie and Alex in on that. As I will respect Jim's, I won't talk about baseball until pitchers and catchers. But Jim will be my third voice on the National League Central in what I'm calling the Big Weekend 6. The 6 episodes of the Big Weekend Baseball Show, co-hosted by my Hermano de Baseball, Alex from Row 7. Where we will break down every division. We will give predictions on every division, and we will dive into the 2023 baseball season, which, by the way, they report to spring training in less than 100 days. So we got a lot coming down the pipe. I know the Sports Note is going to dive into hockey very soon, I'm guessing. Mr. James?
I'll cover that here in a second, but go ahead and finish up your plugs.
So... And hopefully we got to be on the rails a little bit in a couple weeks, and we want to have Nat on a couple weeks. We want to play that one to the level, or is that the 10 minutes you're talking about?
Yeah, we'll actually see what happens with the schedule. But again, if we actually kind of have to do that separate from the show and upload that,
Yeah.
as its entire own section, we'll do so.
So other than that, if they weren't playing in the New Year's in the playoff, this would probably be my last show of the year too on the 17th. But I will get one more out after that. It's going to be everywhere. It's YouTube, everywhere else where you can get the podcast. I got to go back through and I got to start putting some audio stuff out because for whatever reason, Spotify is not uploading my stuff. So we may see some changes there. Jim, what else coming on?
Coming up on the sports note, we actually earlier tonight, I was a very busy cat. Earlier, we did our normal weekly sports note. We covered TCU having their rightful place at 3. You can go over to the sports note and check that out right now. You can also see my corresponding commentary on the GC24 Sports Note on YouTube. That actually was posted earlier tonight as well. We did a live Browns react about 2 hours before we came live tonight. We'll have that next week after the Cincinnati game, which I'm hoping is going to be another loss. And then we'll actually have, there will be another one after the Baltimore game, which I'm expecting to be another loss because they can't beat Tyler Huntley either. And they'll officially be out of the playoff picture at that point. But we also I actually have something in the pipe now that normally I'll say I might be working on some things. When Wednesday opens up after the chaos of the early part of this week, we're actually going to be discussing Deion Sanders taking the Colorado job, which we specifically left off here tonight. I got ideas mentioned. I did not want to take away from what we covered here tonight. That they officially announced it earlier this evening, so that will be going live sometime on Wednesday, at the worst case, first thing on Thursday. But that is actually the next thing that we are going to be covering on that. We are hopefully going to get into a little bit more hockey. I have not touched it in a while. I've been very, very heavy on college football and college basketball. As a matter of fact, I actually had to cut a couple of things this week. Mike, I'm not sure if you saw the story, but the Indiana women's basketball team had to play at a tournament game in Las Vegas in a Las Vegas hotel ballroom.
Yeah, they played Auburn. It's not like they played a garbage team either.
Yeah. It's so I was actually going to take a lot of umbrage with that. Kind of compare it to what we actually saw in the bubble in March Madness 2 years ago, with that big story that came out, with the discrepancy between the accommodations for the men and the women. But unfortunately, things kind of fell by the wayside. Things got backed up, and unfortunately, I had to pull that. And it was definitely not something I wanted to. But again, Deion Sanders taking the head coaching job at Colorado. We will be talking about that later on this week.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up too when I do the preview episode for the Peach Bowl. I'll talk about Coach Prime a little bit. But Jim, 2 hours, bud.
Back to back times of 2 hours. I think it's also because we actually went a little earlier this week. We started 30 minutes earlier than we normally do. Last week it was just nobody really had to kind of get up the next morning. And we went until midnight.
I don't remember that much.
Well, you were half asleep by the end of the episode.
Very true. So thanks everybody for watching. Although, hit the Harry Doyle, would you?
Damn it! I don't have to wait, or do I? Hang on. Please hold. Come on.
I hope you have it.
It's not the one you wanted because that clip didn't get pulled properly, but.
Oh. Can't hear it.
I'll have it ready. I'll have it ready in 2 weeks. Trust me.
Hopefully that zero's not there. James, I will be in touch during the week to discuss this more, and I will talk to everybody out there very soon. Thanks, guys.
And I will leave you with 4 simple words. Good night, everybody.
Nice. Take care, man.
Good night.